Welcome to our deep dive. This time around, we're taking a good, hard look at Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy.
Great choice.
Yeah. We're going to try to figure out, how ego can really sabotage us when we're trying to reach our goals.
And how to actually beat it. Yes.
Exactly. So you've brought the audiobook, which is awesome, because I know Holiday uses a ton of stories from history to really bring this idea to life.
He does. He looks at people who totally conquered their ego
Yeah.
and others who, didn't do so well.
Let's hear some names. Who are we going to learn from today?
Oh, we've got Genghis Khan. We've got Katharine Graham.
Yeah.
Even Tom Brady shows up.
Wow, what a mix.
Yeah, Holiday pulls wisdom from every corner of history to show just how much ego can really mess with all of us.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's dive in. Where does Holiday say we should start with this whole tackling the ego thing?
He breaks it down into 3 phases: aspiring,
Okay.
success, and failure. And he says ego shows up differently in each one.
That makes sense. Our mindset totally changes as we move through those stages, right? So let's start with the aspiring phase, that time when we're full of energy and dreams. What are some of the classic ego traps to watch out for?
One of the biggest ones is what he calls talking too much.
Ah.
He brings up this great example of Upton Sinclair, the author who ran for governor of California.
Oh, yeah, I know that name.
So Sinclair was so focused on crafting this narrative of his future success that he actually wrote a book called I, Governor of California,
No way, before the election.
before the election even happened.
Oh my gosh, talk about counting your chickens before they hatch. Did he win?
Not a chance.
Mm.
He lost big time. And Holiday says this obsession with talking about success actually sucked all of Sinclair's energy away from the real work of campaigning.
So it's not enough to just dream big, we gotta actually put in the work.
Exactly.
You have to.
What other traps should we be looking out for in this early phase?
Early pride. That's a sneaky one.
Ooh, tell me more. Holiday tells this funny story about a young Benjamin Franklin strutting around Boston after being away for a bit.
Okay, I'm already picturing the powdered wig.
Oh, yeah. He had some money,
Mm.
a new suit, a fancy watch. He was feeling pretty good about himself.
I bet.
And he was walking with his older mentor. And he was so busy bragging and holding his head high that he walked right into a low-hanging beam.
Ouch.
Yeah. His mentor used it as a teaching moment, though. He told young Franklin to stoop as he goes through the world, literally and metaphorically.
I love that.
It's all about staying humble, realizing we've got a lot to learn, especially when we're just starting out.
So how do we avoid those early ego traps when we're super excited and ambitious? How do we stoop without losing our drive?
Holiday says being a perpetual student is key. He uses a surprising example here, Genghis Khan.
Really, Genghis Khan, I never thought of him as much of a learner.
Right. We usually picture him as this ruthless conqueror.
Yeah.
But Holiday points out how open he was to learning from the cultures he ran into. He incorporated their technologies, their strategies, even some of their religious ideas into his own empire.
So even when he was conquering, he was still learning.
Exactly. It shows that real growth comes from staying open to new ideas, no matter how much we achieve.
How do we actually do that? How do we cultivate that student mentality?
One thing he says is to look for mentors, people who are more experienced than us. And read a lot. Expose yourself to new ideas and perspectives.
So it's not just about being willing to learn, it's about actively looking for ways to grow.
Right.
I'm starting to see how dangerous it can be to buy into our own hype, especially early on. We gotta balance that ambition with some serious humility and a thirst for knowledge.
Absolutely. And speaking of ambition, Holiday contrasts Genghis Khan with another historical figure, someone whose ego kind of overshadowed his potential, George B. McClellan.
Bring on the cautionary tale.
Who was he?
McClellan was this brilliant Civil War general, super talented, highly respected.
Right.
But he also had a massive ego.
I have a feeling this isn't going to end well.
He was so sure of his own brilliance that he constantly overestimated his own abilities and underestimated his opponents.
He became totally paralyzed by indecision, always waiting for the perfect moment to strike, which never really came.
So his own self-belief became his biggest obstacle.
Exactly. Holiday says this kind of ego-driven thinking really distorts how we see the world and stops us from taking the actions we need to reach our goals.
It's a good reminder that confidence is important, but overconfidence can really trip us up, especially when it stops us from learning and adapting.
Right. So as we navigate that aspiring phase, we got to find that sweet spot between ambition and humility, always striving to learn and grow while staying grounded in reality.
This has been such a good look at the aspiring phase, but what happens when we actually start finding success?
Things get even trickier. And that's what we'll explore next.
Okay, so we've made it. We're in the success phase. Things should be smooth sailing now, right?
You'd think so. But Holiday says that's actually where things can get even more complicated.
Really? How so?
Success can actually make our ego even bigger, making us even more vulnerable to its traps.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. And he uses the story of Howard Hughes to show what he means.
Hugh's the, like, aviator and filmmaker, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I know the name, but I don't really know the story.
So Hughes was like incredibly talented and successful. I mean, he had it all. But as he got wealthier and more famous, he also became more and more reclusive. Like he was super paranoid and controlling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he ended up isolating himself from everyone, even the people closest to him.
It's kind of sad to think that someone so successful could be so unhappy.
Right. It's like his ego just took over and totally distorted his view of reality.
So what's the opposite of that? What can someone do to handle success without letting their ego run wild?
Holiday talks about Bill Walsh, the legendary coach of the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, that's a name I know. Big football fan here.
He was known for his incredible attention to detail and his constant pursuit of excellence.
Yeah.
But he was also super humble.
What kind of details are we talking about?
Everything, like how the players held the ball, how tidy the locker room was. Yeah. He believed that all those little things built a culture of excellence and ultimately led to those Super Bowl wins.
So it's about focusing on those fundamentals even when you're already at the top.
Exactly. And it's about staying grounded, recognizing that success is a team effort, not a one-man show.
Seems like humility is key no matter where you are in the journey.
Definitely.
Mm.
And Holiday brings up another important concept here, the internal scorecard.
That's come up a few times. Can you remind me what that means?
Basically, it's a set of values and principles that you use to measure your own success. It's about defining what really matters to you, what you stand for, and using that as your guide, instead of getting caught up in what other people think.
So it's like having your own set of standards based on what you believe in, not what the world tells you to believe in.
Right, and that's so important when you're experiencing success because it's easy to get distracted by all the praise and recognition and forget about what truly matters.
Like you need a strong internal compass to keep you on track.
Exactly. And Holiday uses the stories of Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman after the Civil War to show this.
I don't know much about them after the war. What happened?
So Sherman, even though he was a war hero, he didn't want to run for office or anything. He retired from the military and lived a pretty quiet life.
Sounds like he knew what he wanted.
He did. He stayed true to his values. Grant, on the other hand, got pulled into politics and eventually became president. But he wasn't really prepared for the challenges and temptations of Washington, D.C. His presidency was full of scandals and controversies.
So even though they both achieved incredible success in the war, their different approaches to handling that success led them down very different paths.
Exactly. And Holiday uses this to emphasize how important it is to define what really matters to us, what our values are, and make choices that align with those values, even when success tempts us to stray.
It sounds a lot like the Stoic philosophy that Holiday talks about.
Stoicism is all about virtue reason, living in accordance with nature, focusing on what you can control your own thoughts and actions, and accepting what you can't.
That makes so much sense in the context of success. We can control how we respond to it, how we manage our ego, how we stay true to our values, but we can't control external circumstances, other people's opinions, or the inevitable ups and downs of life.
Right, and I think that's one of the most empowering messages of Holiday's book, that we have agency even in the midst of success.
Yeah.
We get to choose how we define success, how we manage our ego, and how we stay true to our purpose.
That's a great takeaway. This has been such a good look at the success phase, but we gotta talk about the phase that no one likes to talk about, failure. How does ego make dealing with setbacks even harder?
That's the big question, and that's what we'll dive into next.
Okay, time to talk about the part no one really wants to face failure. It's like the elephant in the room, right?
For sure. And Holiday says that's exactly when ego can turn into our worst enemy. It just makes things so much harder.
So how does it actually mess with us when we fail? It's not like we want to mess up.
No, but he says ego makes us cling to this perfect version of ourselves.
Right.
Which makes accepting failure, super painful. It's like our ego's built this whole story of who we are, what we can do.
Yeah.
And when things don't go according to plan, it feels like a total personal attack.
Ouch. Yeah, I've been there, that feeling of, I'm a failure. It's tough to shake. What does Holiday say we can do to, climb out of that hole?
He has an interesting idea about alive time versus dead time.
Okay, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
So alive time is time spent actually living life. right?
Yeah.
Going after goals, learning, growing, connecting with people.
Breaks sense.
Dead time is the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like wasting time on regret, beating yourself up, dwelling on the past.
Okay.
So when we fail, we have a choice. We can wallow in it and live in that dead time,
Right.
or we can use it to learn and grow and get back to that alive time.
So it's not about pretending it didn't happen. It's about how you choose to react.
Exactly. And Holiday talks about Katharine Graham, who took over the Washington Post during a crazy time.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there a movie about that?
Yeah, the Post Meryl Streep played her.
That's right.
And in real life, she faced like sexism, boardroom fights, the whole Pentagon Papers thing.
Wow.
But she handled it all with serious resilience. She didn't get defensive or give up. She used those experiences to learn and grow as a leader. It's like the perfect example of turning dead time into a live time.
So how do we build that kind of resilience when we're in the middle of it all? You know, when it really hurts?
He talks about the internal scorecard again.
Right. Defining your own success based on your values.
Exactly. When we fail, it's easy to look to other people for validation.
Like, did I do good enough? Do people still respect me?
That's your ego talking.
Yeah. It's
You-
like it needs that reassurance, but it's looking in the wrong place.
An internal scorecard helps you break free from that. It reminds you to ask yourself, did I live up to my standards? Did I do my best based on my values?
So it's about focusing on what you can control: your effort, your integrity, your commitment to growth.
Exactly. And he uses Tom Brady as an example.
Okay. Love a good sports reference.
He's obviously one of the best quarterbacks ever, but he's had his share of criticism and setbacks.
For sure.
But he doesn't let those voices define him. He focuses on his own process, his own definition of excellence.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't let the noise get to him. He just keeps doing his thing.
And that's a really important point. Holiday's saying that real success is about mastering yourself, your ego, your emotions, your reactions. It's about developing a mindset that lets you push through challenges, learn from mistakes, and stay focused on what truly matters.
I love that. This has been so insightful. I'm honestly looking at failure in a totally new way. Now it feels more like a stepping stone than a roadblock.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing we got to talk about, how we handle our emotions when things go wrong.
Yeah, because I can imagine ego can lead to some pretty intense reactions. What are some of the traps we fall into?
One of the biggest ones is anger. When we fail, our ego wants to blame someone or something.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. It's so easy to play the blame game.
Right. But Holiday says that kind of thinking is super destructive. It keeps you stuck in the past and stops you from seeing things clearly.
So how do we break free from that anger? How do we stop blaming everyone else?
He actually suggests love.
Love, that's not what I was expecting.
He's not talking about romantic love, but a more compassionate kind of love.
Okay.
It's about seeing the humanity in others even when they mess up.
No.
It's about realizing that everyone's got their own struggles, that everyone makes mistakes, and that holding on to anger just hurts you in the end.
So it's about rising above your ego and choosing to be more understanding.
Right. It's not easy, but he says you can do it by focusing on what you can control, your own thoughts, actions, reactions, and try to see things from the other person's point of view. Maybe they were acting out of fear or insecurity.
It's like taking a step back and choosing to be kind even when it's tough.
Exactly. And that leads to another important strategy, letting go. Letting go of the need to be right, the need to get even, the need to have the last word.
Man, that's hard, especially when you feel hurt.
It is. But he says holding on to those grudges just keeps you stuck. It stops you from moving on, learning from your experiences, and building a better future.
So it's about accepting that things happen. Maybe you made mistakes, maybe someone did you wrong, and choosing to move forward anyway.
Right. And that brings us back to that idea of always being a student. When you approach life with humility and a willingness to learn, even your biggest failures can become valuable lessons.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I'm seeing failure in a whole new light.
I love to hear that. And remember, this is just the start. The real work begins now. Putting these ideas into practice, noticing your own ego's tricks, and making choices that align with your best self.
This deep dive into Ryan Holiday's ego is the enemy has given us a lot to think about. It's a powerful reminder that ego is something we're always going to be dealing with, but we can overcome it with awareness, humility, and a commitment to growth.
Absolutely. And remember, ego is the enemy, not failure, not other people.
Right.
When we understand and manage our own ego, we can achieve real success, resilience, and fulfillment.
And on that note, that's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep that ego in check.